Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into a really crucial topic from current affairs, something that has direct relevance for your GS Paper 3 preparation. We're talking about the growing call for reforms in India's commodity markets. So let's get right into it. So this all starts with a recent report in The Hindu. It points out that the Association of NSE Members of India, that's ANMI for short, is really pushing for some major reforms. They're talking to SEBI, the Finance Ministry, even the RBI. For your exams, this is exactly the kind of development you need to keep a close eye on. To really get why these reforms are so important, we first have to understand the main problem. Priya ma'am, could you maybe break down this market imbalance for our students?
Absolutely, Anand, sir. You see, everyone, the central issue here is a pretty big contrast. India has a very mature, very active equity market, right? But when you look at our commodity derivatives market, well, it's lagging way behind. It's significantly underdeveloped. And this gap is really at the heart of the whole issue.
And this chart, wow, it really puts things into perspective, doesn't it? If you look at the SEBI data, you'll see we have almost 5,000 registered equity brokers. But then look at the commodity segment. That number just plummets to a little over 2,000. This huge gap, it's a clear signal that the market just doesn't have the depth or the reach it needs. Exactly. And this quote from Kamlesh D. Shroff, who is the president of ANMI, just hits the nail on the head. He's confirming that our market growth has been, lopsided. Most of the action is crammed into just a few areas, and that leaves a critical sector like commodities kind of trailing in the dust. So what's the fix? What's the proposed solution here? Well, ANMI isn't just pointing out a problem. They're actually putting forward some very concrete steps for reform. They've given the regulators a clear set of demands to tackle this very imbalance. Let's break down exactly what they're asking for. Okay, so ANMI is demanding 4 key things. First, speed up the rollout of something called co-location services. Second, rationalize transaction taxes. Third, bring in more flexible weekly expiry options. And fourth, get tougher on dormant DMAT accounts to better protect investors. Now, let's zoom in on the most technical one here, co-location. Premam, could you simplify this whole co-location concept for everyone watching? Of course. Look, in today's world of trading, speed is absolutely everything. Co-location is actually a pretty simple idea. It's just about placing a broker's computer servers in the very same data center as the stock exchange's servers. Because they're physically so close, it drastically cuts down the time it takes for a trade order to travel. We call this latency. We're talking about a speed advantage of milliseconds, which lets traders react way faster. ANMI is arguing that bringing this to the commodity markets will attract the big, high-volume traders and really deepen the market. Thank you. That was a crystal clear explanation. Now, aspirants, this is where it gets really important for you. How do you connect all of this to your UPSC syllabus? Well, this links directly to your General Studies Paper 3. The key terms from the syllabus you need to think about are Indian economy, mobilization of resources, inclusive growth, and of course, financial market regulation. You see, developing our commodity markets is a perfect example of mobilizing resources. Why? Because it lets our farmers manage price risks. And that stability, it contributes directly to inclusive growth by making agriculture more profitable and predictable. And the fact that SEBI and the government are involved, well, that's a classic case of financial market regulation in action. Exactly right. Knowing the facts is just step 1, isn't it? You have to be able to apply them. So let's frame this whole topic from the perspective of how it might actually show up in your mains exam or even in your interview. All right, take a look at this. This is a potential mains question. Now, if you see something like this, your answer structure needs to be very clear. Start with the challenges, like the low number of brokers we talked about. Then you outline the reforms that ANMI is proposing, like co-location and tax changes. But here's the most important part. You absolutely must explain how each reform helps create a deeper integration with the agricultural economy. That linkage, that connection, that's the key to a high-scoring answer. Now, in an interview, things might be a bit more direct. They might just ask you point blank about co-location. You should define it simply, but also be ready to talk about the controversy, the argument that it could give an unfair advantage to bigger players who can afford it. And if they ask how these markets help farmers, focus on the real-world benefits, better price discovery and managing risk, which ultimately leads to more stable and predictable incomes for them. So, the big takeaway here is to always connect the news analytically to your syllabus. That's right, keep looking at what's happening in the world through the lens of potential mains and interview questions. We wish you the very best in your preparation.